Hi, I'm Sandy Boone, therapist, coach, and nervous system educator with 30 years in healthcare and mental health. I built two practices, got diagnosed with ADHD at 50, and learned the hard way that healers need healing too. I help female therapists and healers regulate their nervous systems, reclaim their lives, and stop being everyone's everything. Welcome to the Brain Dump with Sandy Boone. I want to tell you about someone, and I'm not going to use his name, and I'm going to change enough details that he's unidentifiable. But the clinical picture is real, and I think it's one of the most important things I can share with you. This is a man who has been to counselor after counselor, in person, telehealth, retreats, multiple modalities, multiple clinicians, multiple attempts to get at something that keeps repeating in his life, and nothing is shifting. Not because he's resistant or because he isn't trying. He shows up, he does the work. He has more insight into his patterns than most people will ever have. And he keeps circling the same territory, the same relational patterns, the same pull towards situations that don't serve him, the same inability to make the change he says he wants to make. I know this person peripherally. He's not a client of mine. And I want to say, I don't think he's a bad person. I think he genuinely doesn't want to hurt anyone. I think he spent years trying to figure out why he keeps ending up here. And here is what I keep coming back to. What if the problem isn't that he hasn't found the right therapist yet? What if the problem is that everyone has been working at the wrong level? Talk therapy is extraordinarily valuable. I'm a therapist and I believe in this word. Talk therapy gives people language for their experience. It helps them understand their patterns. It builds self-awareness, relational capacity, and the ability to recognize what's happening in real time. Those are not small things, but here's what talk therapy cannot do on its own. It cannot change what is happening in your body at the cellular level. For a significant number of people who feel stuck, who have done years of therapy, who have all the insight in the world, who can explain their childhood wounds and their attachment patterns and their triggers with remarkable precision, the reason they're still stuck is not that they don't understand themselves. It's that their body hasn't caught up with what their mind already knows. This is the gap that functional medicine fills, and it's a gap that most of the mental health field is not talking about enough. Let me go back to the man I mentioned at the beginning. He is a first responder, which means he carries occupational trauma on top of whatever came before the job. That is a particular kind of accumulated stress that lives in the body in ways that talk therapy alone was never designed to address. But here's the layer I want to add that almost nobody is looking at. What if the reason he can't break this pattern isn't willpower or commitment or even insight? What if his cells literally don't have the energy or the capacity to sustain the change? It's not a metaphor, it's a physiological question. When the body has been under chronic stress, occupational, relational, environmental, it begins to deplete. Minerals that run the nervous system get used up faster than they get replaced. The cellular machinery that produces energy starts to underperform. Toxins that should be clearing efficiently start to accumulate instead. And what does that look like from the outside? It looks like someone who keeps trying and can't make it stick. Someone whose nervous system is running on a depleted tank and cannot generate the sustained capacity that real behavior change requires. Someone who understands exactly what they need to do differently and somehow still can't do it. Not because they don't want to, but because their system doesn't have the resources to support the change. There's also something I want to name that doesn't get discussed enough in mental health contexts. Research documents that certain communities carry a higher toxic burden than others. Not because of anything they did, but because of the environments that they've lived in across generations. Agricultural chemical exposure, industrial pollution, limited access to clean food and water, chronic stress passed down through families, navigating systemic hardship. That burden shows up in the body, in how the cells function, in how the nervous system regulates, in how patterns get stuck and won't shift no matter how much therapy someone does. This is not about ethnicity as an identity. It's about the documented environmental health disparities that have real, measurable physiological consequences, and it is almost never part of the clinical conversation. Here's what I see consistently when I look at clients through a functional medicine lens after they've been in talk therapy for years. There's often something happening at the physiological level that is creating a kind of buffer, a protection, something that keeps them from fully feeling the weight of their own experience, their own choices, and their own capacity for change. In somatic experiencing, we talk about the incomplete stress response. The body starts to mobilize towards something, towards change, towards connection, towards a different way of being, and then something interrupts it. The mobilization never completes. The person is left in a kind of perpetual almost. Talk therapy can help someone understand why that happens. But if the interruption is physiological, the body literally doesn't have the mineral resources, the cellular energy, the detox capacity to complete the cycle. Understanding why it happens doesn't fix it. Friends, you cannot think your way out of a body problem. I say this as a therapist and as someone who believes deeply in the power of the therapeutic relationship and the healing that happens in a good therapy room. I also say this as someone who has watched clients spend years in therapy making beautiful, real progress at the level of insight and language and still not changing the patterns that brought them in. When I add the functional medicine lens, I start asking different questions. What does your nutrition actually look like? Not the ideal version, the real version. What do your labs tell us about what's happening in your body right now? What does your mineral status look like? Are the raw materials of nervous system function actually present and available? What is your toxic burden? What might be interfering with your body's ability to regulate, to detox, to produce the energy that sustained change requires? These are not therapy questions, they are physiology questions, and they change everything. The mental health field has made enormous strides in understanding trauma, attachment, nervous system regulation, and the body's role in psychological health. And we are still largely operating as if the brain exists completely separate from the body it lives in. We talk about the gut-brain connection in continuing education seminars and then send clients home without asking what they're eating. We know that mineral depletion affects mood, cognition, and emotional regulation, and then refer out to a psychiatrist for medication without ever checking the mineral status. We understand that chronic stress depletes the body's resources and then wonder why our clients can't sustain the changes they're working so hard to make. The conversation is incomplete, and people are paying the price for that incompleteness. And the people that are paying the highest price are the clients who keep showing up, keep trying, keep doing the work, and keep circling the same territory wondering what's wrong with them. Nothing is wrong with them. The map just doesn't have the whole territory on it. So what does it look like when you add the functional medicine lens to the clinical picture? It starts with asking different questions and looking in different places. It might mean running an HTMA, a hair tissue mineral analysis, to see what's actually happening at the cellular level, what minerals are depleted, what's bio-unavailable, what patterns are showing up in the ratios that explain why someone's nervous system is running the way it's running. It might mean looking at standard labs through a functional lens, not just whether the numbers are in the normal range, but whether they're optimal, whether the body has what it needs to function at the level the person is trying to function at. It might mean asking about food, not in a prescriptive, restrictive way, but honestly, what is this person eating? What access do they have to real food? And what is their body running on? It might mean understanding the toxic burden piece, what the body is being asked to process and clear, and whether it has the capacity to even do that efficiently. It means holding all of that alongside the psychological picture. The attachment history, the trauma, the relational patterns, the incomplete stress responses, not instead of it, alongside it. Because the person is not a brain floating in a jar, they are a whole system. And healing that doesn't account for the whole system is always going to be partial at best. For the healers listening, I want to speak directly to you because this is relevant to you on two levels. First, your clients. If you have clients who have been doing good work for years and still can't shift out of the pattern, consider referring out for a functional medicine consultation, not instead of therapy, alongside it. Because the work you're doing matters, it just might need a physiological foundation to land on. Second, and maybe more importantly, yourself. Healers are some of the most depleted people I work with. You give everything you have in the room, you carry vicarious trauma, you run on adrenaline and caffeine, and the particular determination of someone who chose this work because it matters. And you almost never ask the functional medicine questions about yourself. What's your mineral status? What's your toxic burden? What is your body actually running on? The same principles apply to you. You cannot think your way out of a body problem, and you cannot sustainably do this work from a depleted system, no matter how much you believe in it. The man I told you about at the beginning of this episode is still circling. He's still trying and showing up for a version of health that is working at the level of insight when the problem may be sitting at the level of his cells. I hope someone in his life eventually asks the functional medicine questions, not instead of therapy, but alongside it. Because insight without a physiological foundation to land on is like building a house on a ground that isn't stable. The work is real, the effort is genuine, and it keeps shifting because the ground underneath isn't solid. Talk therapy is not enough on its own for a significant number of people. It's not a criticism of therapy, it's an honest assessment of what therapy was designed to do and what it wasn't. The body is always in the room. It's time we start treating it that way. If something today resonated with you and you're ready to look at your own picture from a functional medicine lens, check the show notes. You'll find information about booking a deep dive with me at sandyboone.com. 90 minutes, your intake, and up to 2 lab panels. A root cause roadmap, but specifically for you. That's where we start. Thanks for being here.